This is Rafi Cruzon, and you are tuned in to Nothing But That Sports Talk.
Welcome to another episode of Nothing But That Sports Talk NBA Trade Deadline Edition. I'm Rafi Cruzon alongside Geoff Magliocchetti. Welcome aboard. Very nice to see you for the first time since last weekend's USA training camp.
I know, yeah, that was less than a week ago. Oh my god, it feels like forever ago. So much has transpired, but great to be here, Fake. You do great work on your show. Honored to be a guest again.
Yeah, I mean, and it's only right that I bring you back on the show because me and you were both at USA training camp last week. We'll just start off the show with that. Like when we were in, I mean, for what we saw players pretty much trying to get into one of those 12 spots in USA basketball. I feel like for what we saw when we entered like the entire scenery, they were looking more on defense before they started working on their offense. And that's fine because we expect Cheryl Reed to make sure that the players prepare themselves both offensively and defensively to make the final cut as they go into quarterfinal play in Belgium.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the main thing that everyone wanted to get through over at camp was that the USA basketball is confirmed to be partaking in this summer's Olympics. But there was a sense of, wanting to prove why that spot was justified. They didn't want to take anything for granted, which I think serves them real well because we've seen, so much improvement in the women's game, not just domestically, but abroad as well. And they mention how interesting it's going to be. I believe that game's going on right now. They're taking on a Belgium group in Antwerp, and the game is sold out. There's going to be a raucous crowd over there, and they want to, kind of snuff that hope of an upset early on. Make sure there's nothing to suggest that there's going to be hope of an upset, and there's going to be, and they'll be well on pace for yet another gold medal. But everyone seemed to be well in shape. Everyone seemed to be well in tune. The message was received real well. Everyone's handling their outside responsibilities well. There's a strong, delicate balance out there, and I think there's some more lucrative opportunities awaiting everyone in Paris this year.
Exactly, and the whole entire training camp mood is these players know that it's us against us. They carry that throughout their basketball careers. I mean,
Sure.
from when they were playing against these guys who are pretty much trainees to actually playing against each other, so they can get a feel of themselves as far as developing the chemistry. And as you spoke, I mean, you heard the questions I asked the players in Cheryl Reeve, and I heard your questions, and they all give different narratives and perspectives about trying to make the roster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an honor to represent your country out there, especially in this day and age. So I feel that they're working real well out there. And of course, our local New York Liberty, well represented out there. 3 players in camp, 2 making the roster in Sabrina Ionescu and Brianna Stewart. So that's going to be really interesting to take a look at. But Angelini, also participant out there, one of the camp attendees. So I feel that, they're locked in. They know what they're doing. They know what the goal is. And they know that there are massive expectations to live up to. They're not going into Paris under the assumption that they're going to be just handed the gold and allowed to walk away. And I think that's the best thing you could say about best thing you could say about this group. They're not going to take anything for granted. They're going to want to work. They're going to want to earn their respective titles out there. So props to them. I'm really looking forward to see what we can learn about this group now that the 12 are assembled out there in Antwerp.
Exactly, and you mentioned the Liberty players. It's good that they finally know what's ahead. I mean, 2 of them making the roster, which is not bad, but I know we would have loved to see all 3 New York Liberty players make the final roster. I mean, sorry that Bernard Jelini got left out, but she knows that it's going to take that pretty much tells her that she has a lot of work to do. I mean, she had to work a lot just to get 1 All-Star nod. Now she has to work extra harder in order to have a chance to get gold medal because the Olympics is no joke. And the 6 players that got rejected, they know that making the Olympic team is no joke.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope they knew that before coming in, but I feel that it's very telling that when a player of Benigni Lini's caliber is left off the roster, that just shows you how cutthroat this competition was. That just shows you how elite this unit was and how well stocked this group is. So, the fact that there are such illustrious talents left off this roster really says a lot. So But one thing that impressed me about Benaja is that she really seemed to improve herself really on the defensive front from what we saw out there. She seemed better built, but she looked a lot faster and swifter as well. And she was very fearless out there. She wasn't afraid to post up against Aaliyah Boston, for example, out there in the paint going for rebounds. She wasn't afraid to kind of set a pick and let, Stewie or Sabrina get by. So I'm really expecting a lot of fearlessness out of Benaja this year. I think it's going to be huge that she has a quote unquote normal off season to deal with this time around, especially considering that the prior off season kind of had some questions to it. How was she going to recover from an injury that hampered most of her 2022 campaign? How was she going to adjust to a contract year that was, fortunately for New York, sorted out before the hoopla of free agency? So I feel that this was a great experience for her, with a great chance to show her stuff, show where she's at. And she has nothing to be ashamed of. I think she's had a great off season. She's connected. She's been working with her husband. Lot of time spent with her beloved niece JJ. Who's been a mainstay at Liberty Pressers. I'm sure you're well aware. So I feel that this was a strong learning experience for her. And I feel that this is a strong, little tease of what's to come next year. The yields, the fruits of a quote unquote normal off season have done really well for her.
Exactly. And to pick up on what you just said, let's not forget what Kelsey Plum said after winning the championship, that a super team is not built in 4 months. And this is the problem. And when you have 3 players for the starting 5 super team that the Liberty decided last year, having the chance to come together, if not to make the roster, at least develop the chemistry. That was one of the things that Benaja touched upon. And even Sabrina Ionescu touched upon it as well. She talked about anytime that you get a chance to build chemistry with your teammates and trying to make a national, especially when you're trying to make a national roster, that elevates them to becoming a better team going into next season, especially with all the offseason moves, which we will get into a little bit. But yeah, this is going to help the New York Liberty, and not just the New York, not just as constructed right now, but develop team chemistry. It's a process.
Yes. Oh yeah, of course it's a process, but especially considering, they'll be going back to their own team soon enough. Before you know, we'll be back there for training camp, and it'll be interesting to see what sort of chemistry they were able to develop in this short amount of time. How this 12 is able to adjust. And I think that's going to be one of the real goals of what's going on in Belgium right now. And they seem to trust each other out there. Kelsey Plum mentioned it was very interesting that they put rivalries aside. There's no trash talking, with the exception of Diana Taurasi teasing her with Caitlin Clark in the middle of her availability.
And when she told us reporter, and she told me and Gigi, do not ask me any more Caitlin Clark questions. I was asked that about like 50 times because Caitlin Clark is knocking on the door. Well, obviously Caitlin Clark is knocking on that door. He's 66 points as a passer in Division I scoring for the women's side. So you can tell she was kind of bothered, but not bothered by that.
Well, come on. I'm sure. Who wants to asked that question a million times?
Imagine like you were a long snapper, right? And I'm sure you had players during your time. If somebody were to ask you questions related to somebody surpassing your record later years after you left, like what would you say?
Well, first of all, what record am I setting that's going to be broken? Because as a long snapper, the only stat we accumulate, unfortunately, is bad snaps, perhaps. So I hesitate to stake any claim to a long snapper's record, unfortunately, because like I told you the other day, we're like superheroes. It's kind of better if no one knows our identity. So I dare say, what record am I breaking that's going to be broken by a long snapper? That's terrifying on my end. That prospect.
I'm just saying, just give you an example. But yeah, getting back to the conversation.
No, like what I would say. Look, I would respect the guy who was about to break my record. I'm like, hey, I know how hard it is, so he must be going through 40-fold and whatnot. So but obviously, yes, those questions would wear thin after a while, and I'm sure some friendly jeering from your teammates out there certainly didn't help, especially those so in tune with the college game. Sabrina, of course, expressing high hopes for a bright future on the women's level, especially with what Juju Watkins is accomplishing right now in her former stomping grounds of the Pac-12. So however long that has left. So I totally get where she's coming from, though. I totally get how she would be annoyed with that. Of course, her record's a little more prestigious than a long snapping record. I guess 100% success rate. That'd certainly be one way to go with it. But yeah, I totally get where she's coming from. No need to worry about that.
Yeah, we all get where you're coming from. But there were other perspectives, but there were other factors, and even those that managed to get, even like whether I'm in the media scrums or like I talked to Asia Wilson about this in the media scrums. You were there when I asked this question, and I have a chance, and I know you saw my interview with Aaliyah Boston, where I was talking to these players about being able to have a chance to team up going to USA when you make the final roster after both having established careers in South Carolina, both being national champions, making it relevant in their own rights. And they both talked about how good it is to team up with a fellow South Carolina Gamecock, continuing on for the legacy that they built for the Dawn Staley era. And oh yeah, there's also the fact that Asia Wilson was asked about her book release, Dear Black Girl.
Yes, I mean it was Dawn Staley prepared them well, obviously, for all levels of the game. She's one of the more inspirational coaches out there today. I mean, look, we've seen how well pre-chemistry works, pre-professional chemistry. We've been keeping track of the Knicks endeavors, and the Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart triumvirate has done amazing things out there in Manhattan this season. So we see the value of having that chemistry beforehand, and I think the fact that most of these participants in the U.S. camp have had championship experience, have had the championship level. Like I was saying, Kelsey Plum says they put egos aside because 7 of the 10 starters out there, I believe, maybe it's 6. I gotta rack my brain on that one, but 6 or 7 of the participants in training camp were starters for the defending WNBA Finals participants, New York and Las Vegas, of course. So
that's a very interesting stat. That's a very interesting stat. But don't forget, Brittany Griner has a ring too.
No, of course. Look,
most of the roster, they've all won a WNBA championship. I mean, well, prior to last season at least, either last season or prior to last season at least. So this is what makes this more efficient for them to make the final roster.
No, I think what separates this group from so many others is that they've had a sense that they know what it's like to go through a championship trek. They know the necessary ingredients. They know the right chemistry. They know the right equations and whatnot that will push them forward onto a championship trek. It sounds so cliche. It sounds so cliche to say, oh, he has a ring, she has a ring. They're going to have championship experience. They could teach the young guys out there how to win and whatnot. But it's so important. And I think that it'll translate this year to this year's level, to this year's New York roster, because they were able to accomplish so much in such a short amount of time. I mean, like you mentioned Plum's quote, championship super teams aren't built in 4 months and whatnot. I think that this opportunity to grow extra chemistry, this opportunity to push forward, especially with multiple New Yorkers staying in where else New York this time around, I think that's going to pay off real well. And it's one of several reasons I don't see any changes at this point to the New York Las Vegas finals status quo at this point. Granted, I'm breaking my own rule. I often say no WNBA predictions until March Madness is over, but for you, I'm willing to make an exception.
Yeah, we're trying to keep let's keep the predictions up until next year, until later this year, because you never know what's going to happen between now and after March Madness. I mean,
that's true.
With all the trades going on in free agency, you got teams giving up their picks for big time players. Yes, which we'll get to in a minute, but. And this is one of the reasons why I was asking players like Kelsey Plum and Asia Wilson and Serena Nescu, who hasn't really played at the Olympics before, or rather players that played at the Olympics like years ago in 2021. Right. What are you told the newcomers as far as trying to make the final roster and play in the Olympics, since some of them never really played at the Olympics before? Because yeah, that's why I asked the question that I've asked. And you was with me when I asked those players those questions.
No, it's a good question for sure. And look, they would know. And it's youth and revolt, for lack of a better term, and you are seeing a bit of a changing of the guard out there. Some of the older players giving away to some of the young talents out there. We're looking at the talents that are poised to dominate the WNBA, not just next year but in the near future as well. So it's a very interesting changing of the guard, and there's no better way to signal that by let Diana get her record gold medal out there, let her get that out of the way, break that tie up there with Sue Bird for most golds in U.S. basketball history. So it's a delightful changing of the guard, and the future is bright both in August and beyond. So really interested to see what the American team is able to conjure up this summer in Paris and beyond.
Yeah. But before we talk about Diana getting her 7th gold medal, surpassing Sue Bird, who I've also got a chance to speak to, by the way. You can check that interview on YouTube and Instagram if you haven't yet. And let's just talk about the fact that she has some good pieces coming to the Phoenix Mercury. You got Kalia Copper. You got Natasha Cloud. Yeah. What are your overall thoughts about the type of free agency that the Mercury had, even though it meant giving up their top pick?
No, I think that's I think that it was brilliant what they were able to do, and they've really set them. It really fuels everything about the idea of providing one last run for Diana out there. If this is the last run, look, knowing Diana, she's going to be like Tom Brady. She's going to play till she's 46 and haunt us forever out there. So if anyone in this league is capable of doing it, it's probably her. So I feel that they really went all in on this, and I believe too they were the ones, I believe, acquired Beck Allen over from Connecticut. So that's even better. It's going to improve their defense even further. So I think this is a necessary step for Phoenix, especially what they went through. They sat around in purgatory for about 2 years now. They had to get they dealt with what I'm sure was just a harrowing mental standpoint of knowing that Brittany Griner was away for reasons for just the worst of reasons beyond her control and whatnot. So that had to take a mental toll. And then last year, you get Griner back. She doesn't seem to have lost a step. But at the same time, there was, other things happening off the court. Of course, there was, the sale of the team and whatnot amidst controversy. So what they were able to do this time around, I thought was really smart and, making one last run for a legend, making moves in the name of giving your franchise face one last run at a title, that can often backfire on you. And, but it looks like for now that Phoenix has done real well with it for the time being. I'm not one to grade trades immediately after they happen, but at the same time, it's really hard to argue with what Phoenix has been able to do this offseason. So, you look at the WNBA and, the trend, and this pops up in, a 12-team league. The trend appears to be it adds a very top heavy. The penthouse is occupied by Las Vegas and New York. And until there are results on the floor, that's not going to be proven otherwise. No one else is going to take over at that point. So, you look at the Las Vegas, New York penthouse, if there's any team in the elevator catching up to them, at least on paper, it's hard to argue that Phoenix would not be one of them.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. I mean, not to mention the fact that Natasha Cloud is going to have a chance to team up one of the greatest players in the WNBA after the legacy that she's considered upon the Washington Mystics, who are in a bad spot because she's not there anymore, and Elena Delle Donne is taking time away from basketball.
Yeah, Washington looks to be in full rebuild at this point.
So yeah, Washington's in a tough spot, but they have a lot of reconstructing to do.
No, yeah, look, it's certainly with Pierce though, and Natasha Cloud has been dominant as is, and just imagine what she's going to do once she has a year of working with Taurasi and company, Taurasi and Sophie Cunningham under her belt. So that's going to be real interesting. So I feel that she single-handedly helped the Mystics give the Liberty a bit of a run in their first round set last year. That was really interesting. And the battle she was able to stage with Sabrina Ionescu in the backcourt was one of, probably one of the best one-on-one battles I've seen in my time covering the W. Granted, that's not long in the grand scheme of things, but I feel that, that was one of the best individual matchups we've seen in quite some time. There was nothing but respect on both sides there was just enough of a hint of a classy rivalry to go down that it works. And I'm interested to see what she can do now that she's, poised to kind of take over and pick up where Taurasi left off. So I feel that that's going to be real interesting and work real well for her career out there.
Yeah, it's gonna be big time. And you're talking about, and this is Natasha Cloud talking about it. Activates. Like she's done it all. she may not have all-star nods, but she's proven that she could be very focal point to a championship tier team, even though the Mercury were good last year or the year before. But this is going to elevate the Phoenix Mercury to at least compete for a playoff spot. And why not? You're gonna have to compete with the likes of Seattle Storm, who, as we transition to them a little bit, they picked up Neka Okumek. They picked up Skylar Dickens-Smith. We think about what Seattle was able to do, even if it meant sacrificing their pick.
No, I mean, look, Seattle, you never want to count out, if only for historical purposes alone. They remind me a lot of the Patriots before we found out how straight to heck that went. Just the mere presence of the storm. Excuse me. Just the mere presence of the storm, mere thought of the storm, what they've been able to accomplish historically, that's a threat. And the way that Seattle's embraced them and whatnot, the way Seattle champions them and whatnot, that's a threat. They're always going to have that team's back. So, but then they go out, like you said, and make some moves this offseason. Phoenix and Seattle could have fallen into oblivion. The tide could have fallen real quick. Right now, I could see them both battling for third place, at least on the initial WNBA playoff bracket. You see them third and fourth place. Of course, you're going to have some chasers in there. Connecticut just restocked on its own stars right now. Atlanta made some moves this offseason, including bringing Tina Charles back out of de facto retirement. So I feel that the W remains top heavy, but that battle between third and sixth is going to be very, very, very interesting based on the moves we've seen.
And don't forget about the Minnesota Lynx. They picked up Letitia Heineman for the Connecticut trade. That's going to be very interesting. Cheryl Reeve knows how to build her players up for the ground, so don't be surprised if Minnesota gets one of the 3 through 6 spots.
I give Reeve a ton of credit because for about the past 3 or 4 years now, I've said to myself, okay, this is the year Minnesota falls off a cliff. This is the year Minnesota starts rebuilding.
Every year they begin the season 0-6. You think they're not going to be anything, but then they pull a rabbit out their hat, and with the exception of 2022, which is Sylvia Fowles' final year for WNBA career, they have you thinking. I mean, they mess with you. They have you thinking they're not going to get anywhere, and they make it to the playoffs.
Oh, don't they ever? And I feel for the time being.
But this is going to show that sometimes the WNBA can be unpredictable outside the top two, which is the Liberated Aces.
No, for sure, and who knows what they'll be able to do this year? I mean, who knows with the sheer amount of talent residing on teams, on presumed teams 2 through 6, 3 through 6, excuse me. The presumed talent there on paper, they should be able to at least put a scare in the top 2 spots. So I'm really interested to see, and maybe just maybe they could throw a wrench into the Commissioner's Cup situation, which is reduced to 5 games now. And in 5 games, anything can happen. So I feel that that's going to be interesting to watch. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. What can these teams do? Who can prove themselves early on, especially in the early months of June, especially in the pre-Olympic slate? That's definitely going to be one of the most intriguing subplots of the 2024 W season moving forward.
Yep, that's very interesting. And I can't wait to see how these pieces are going to come in fruition. Now we get to the NBA trade deadline that just came and gone. And there was some great, interesting trades. I mean, the Sixers just added Buddy Hield. I mean, why not? With Joel Embiid's injury situation, they're going to need somebody to at least give the Philadelphia 76ers a bit of a boost, because without Joel Embiid, they're 4-12. You have OKC picking up Gordon Hayward, Patrick Beverley going to the Milwaukee Bucks, and the New York Knicks. The talk of free agency pick up Bojan Bogdanovic, and they brought back Alec Burks. So, which trade deadline deals stood out to you?
I mean, I think you listed the major ones right there. I think that I didn't have two. One thing that stood out to me was one that didn't happen. I'm shocked that Toronto kept Bruce Brown on its roster, especially considering they lost a first round pick today in the deal for Kelly Olynyk. So that was one that shocked me in particular. But I think that it's hard to find a deal that's more impactful than what the Knicks did right now. Granted, you want to talk value. Very surprised to see that Oklahoma City convinced Charlotte to part ways with Gordon Hayward without giving up a first-round pick. That's huge for, a growing, developing team, because Oklahoma City's biggest problem right now is basically how do you keep this streak sustainable? How do you win not just now, but later? And keeping a future asset like a first round pick, especially for someone of Gordon Hayward's caliber, is huge. And I think that's a huge step in the right direction for an organization that's, rediscovering the winning instinct, rediscovering the winning itch right now. So that was huge for them. But in terms of value of what can help a team right now, it's hard to find a trade more valuable than what the Knicks were able to accomplish today. Because consider this: most of the life of the millennial Knick fan is basically wondering, when the other shoe is going to drop. This is great, this is great, this is great, but when do you get that kickback to reality? And it's happened about several times over the past week. For example, there was that loss to Los Angeles, the loss to the Lakers on Saturday, where they go 7 minutes without scoring. That could serve as a turning point. Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, they both have to go to the locker room when they're still on the floor late in games when the Knicks are up big. That could serve as a turning point. Trading Quentin Grimes could serve as an indictment on this team, because it's like, oh, you only have 2 homegrown players left on this team, left in the rotation, in Miles McBride and Jericho Sims, the only guys who got drafted by this team who play any major minutes for his team. It could be basically 1.5, because Sims only gets in when there's injuries in the interior. But here's the thing. The Knicks have learned, they've adapted, and they're ready to push forward. All this time, Leon Rose wasn't sleeping. He was learning from his mistakes out there. You trade Obi Toppin. There's no depth behind Randall. Boom. You get Bojan Bogdanovic, who's averaging over 20 points a game. If you have a guy who's averaging over 20 points a game off the bench, that's huge. You lose your bench scoring in Emmanuel quickly. You replace that with 2 guys. McBride learns how to score. You get back Alec Burks, who's averaging 12 a game. So in terms of value alone, you get these depth stars back, and you suddenly have one of the deepest teams in the league, no matter what night it is. Tom Thibodeau has been using mostly a 9-man rotation out there, especially over the past 2 seasons. But the Knicks right now, it's hard to argue if there's a deeper 11 out there, perhaps beyond Boston right now, making the Knicks case right now. So especially, you look at Philadelphia, they're somewhat panicking right now. They bring in Buddy Hield, they bring in Patrick Beverley, kind of copying the Knicks in that point in terms of improving their defense and whatnot. The Knicks picking up OG Anunoby. Maybe Philadelphia's taking a page out of that book. So they're kind of panicking right now. They trade for Buddy Hield too. They're panicking right now without Embiid. Milwaukee, 1-4 in the Doc Rivers era so far. What's going on over there? Who knows? So I feel that, the Knicks were able to turn themselves into contenders on a nightly basis, even if some of their guys have to, sit out for a while.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because Stephen A. Smith was just talking about how the Knicks starters have been running to the ground like crazy. They don't really use their bench on that much, but a lot of people forget that they actually do. I mean, Miles McBride was getting some minutes. Dante DiVincenzo was able to get some moments. And I mean, when the play was depleted, he had to carry the team. I mean, when the Knicks were depleted, Jalen Brunson had to carry the team, and then he gets injured as well. And we don't even know he's going to play tonight. And you're going to get my thoughts on the Mavericks and Knicks in the very next episode, and discuss whether or not Jalen Brunson played, or Jalen Brunson has a phenomenal performance against his former team. So you're going to be, with all the moves going on in the trades, the Knicks are going to go into tonight with like a 6-player roster, or 8 when you count the G League players. So it's the Knicks are temporarily depleted, but luckily it's only temporary, because they need their starters back by the time we get to the All-Star break. At the very least, Julius Randle got an All-Star selection, but what was the purpose of that? He's not going to play.
No, hey, I mean, look, I'm sure it was conducted before it happened. So, what are you gonna do? But it is interesting, because this is a Knicks franchise. The past 5 decades, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong for this Knicks group. And now suddenly injuries are starting to work in their favor. You lose Randall indefinitely. Suddenly, here comes the All-Star break, and and he might not miss that much time. Mitchell Robinson seemingly out for the year. Oh, look at that. The NBA just denied his disabled player exception.
Because he might possibly play.
Exactly. So, suddenly injuries are starting to work out with this group. I think the one thing you have to worry about is suddenly this OG Anunoby thing doesn't seem so day-to-day as it said. I believe it was Ian Begley of the of SNY reported that.
He confirmed that from an elbow inflammation to a bone spur.
Yes, that's exactly right. So that's something to keep an eye on. That's a little dangerous right now. And because here's the thing about injuries, and why the Bogdanovic trade in particular was so big. The presence of Julius Randle alone isn't going to win you games, because look what happened last year. Randle hurts himself. I think 5 games left in the regular season. He comes back for the Cavs Heat series, and he's there, but he's clearly not 100%. And you had Obi Toppin in there, but excuse me, but you had Obi Toppin there. God bless him. He did real well in that extended time. But it was necessary to trade Obi Toppin because it just like it was necessary to trade RJ Barrett in the sense that the Knicks have enough to worry about. They can't be writing these guys' redemption stories on the go, so they don't have time to play a role in their redemption stories right now. So I feel that, and then then they go a few months without filling the Randall spell option slot. They wanted that to be Josh Hart. Josh Hart doesn't want to be that guy. He wants to be in the backcourt. He wants to be a guard, and he'll tell anyone who will listen of that. You bring in Isaiah Roby. He doesn't make the team out of training camp. But now you're making up for those stakes. You know what to do. You're adapting. And that's the best thing you could say about this group. They're learning from their mistakes. They're taking their time, and they're adapting. Bogdanovic and Burks aren't, the long-sought superstars this team has sought forever, has looked for forever. You're not going to see their name on, like, if this was 1940s MSG, you wouldn't see their name on that marquee going out. You wouldn't see, see Bogdanovic, see Burks tonight against God, who wouldn't even existed then, the Celtics and whatnot.
I mean, they're bench warmers, so it's
no,
different back when
they're not bench warmers. That's a little harsh, but I feel that no, they're Death Stars is what they are. And to have those guys on this team right now, it makes them more of a complete team. It makes them, it's a move out of necessity. It's like it's like having a salad when you want to have a Big Mac. It's a move out of necessity and the right thing to do out there. So props to Knicks. And in terms of value, there's no better move. Nothing that got accomplished today is going to eclipse what the Knicks were able to accomplish with Detroit. So, and the funniest thing about it is, you take one look at Pistons Twitter, they're furious. So that's how you got a good deal, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, Bogdanovic is averaging 20 points for a Pistons team who they did beat the Sacramento Kings, but what does that mean? It's only your 7th win of the season.
Oh yeah, there's some.
They had historically the longest losing streak ever.
Ooh, yeah, that's right. About it
feels like yesterday they were relevant with Chauncey Billups and Rasheed Wallace is there. Not.
Oh, stop! You're making me feel old. Stop. God, no, don't do that.
It's only 2 decades. It's only 2 decades ago since the Pistons won a championship.
Oh, I did not need to hear that today. Oh, I did not need to hear that today. Oh my God, 2 decades. Oh God. Whew, yeah, wow. There's a reality check for you. But no. And the other thing about Bogdanovic is that he could shoot the 3 as well. And I know the Knicks' numbers from 3-point range have improved this year. I believe they're up to 15th in the league this time around, which was glaring considering they shot less than 30. They were the one playoff team last year to shoot less than 30% over the course of the tournament. So the fact that they got a reliable 3-point shooter like Bogdanovic, who fills 2 needs, he can shoot from deep and he fulfills the post spot until Julius Randle's ready to return. So. And, depending on how he plays, he might have to play those extra minutes because who knows if they're going to rush back Randall or whatnot. That's what happened last year. And, it didn't work out. So what they have, is experienced guys out there, and they've built something that, resembles contention, resembles something big without, breaking the bank and paying the price what a major superstar would cost. So it's hard to not give Leon Rose's props here, and this could well go down as his Metropolitan magnum opus.
That's a very interesting point. And hopefully the Knicks can actually build off of this because, well, they're not doing bad. It's just a matter of staying healthy and how good they're going to be when the Knicks are healthy going into playoff time, but which is literally far away. We're not even past March Madness yet, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Next topic. Well, on to the next topic. You got the Super Bowl coming up between the Chiefs and the 49ers. And obviously, this is like the second or third time that we've had the same matchup within a 4-year span because you saw the Giants and Patriots face off in this short period of time. We happen to see the Steelers and the Cowboys face off in this span of time. But looking back at this particular Super Bowl matchup, what excites you about the Super Bowl this season?
Oh God, where to begin? First of all, I called that matchup in September, so I'm probably the one person in America who's happy to see that happen. So, but also, I feel this is a major opportunity for Brock Purdy, who I feel gets a lot of flack, gets a lot of pressure thrown at him. And I don't know why this world turned on Brock Purdy so quick. Any other location, I feel, he'd be viewed, except maybe Dallas, for example, he'd be viewed as, the quintessential NFL success story, to literally go from Mr. Irrelevant and play in a Super Bowl. That's the stuff dreams are made of right there. But it seemed like everyone turned on this poor guy. It seemed like everyone was like, oh, he's only there because of, Debo. He's only there because of Kittle. He's only there because of Ayuk. And you know what? He's known how to take it. He knows how to take advantage of those weapons. Is he a game manager in some aspects of the word? Sure, but you know what? A bad quarterback can sink your entire season. Look at the New York Jets. They have a talented arsenal out there, and all it took was one injury, 4 plays for that season to go completely haywire because they didn't do anything at the quarterback spot. So I'm interested to see what Brock Purdy can do with this Super Bowl run. I'm interested to see San Francisco come out, because San Francisco is slowly teetering on the edge of a team that is incapable of winning the big one. They're almost like their Golden State counterparts, the LA Dodgers, with the shortened 2020 season notwithstanding. When are they going to be able to big one? It's shocking to realize this. But the Dallas Cowboys have won a Super Bowl more recently than the 49ers, which I couldn't believe. And they've been back there a couple times. They did that. They did that one against the Ravens. They had that other one against the Chiefs. And I'm interested to see, can they finally pull it off this time? I think they can, personally. I think a good defense is, the difference maker in this day and age. If you have at least a semi-competent defense out there, you're going to succeed in today's NFL. And, I think, honestly, they're like most people in this world. They're kind of tired about hearing about the Chiefs at this point. So I feel that this is a very interesting opportunity for San Francisco. And one thing I love about their offense, too, they use a fullback. Shout out Kyle Juszczyk. And I feel that, that's a major difference factor for them. But if you have any sort of semi-competent defense in this league, I know Kansas City does, too, because of what defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo has done out there. And gosh darn it, it's been long enough. Let's give Steve Spagnuolo another head coaching opportunity. I'm sorry, I just had to get that off my chest. So I'm interested to see what the defenses could do in this one, how they're able to shut down these elite offenses out there. I know that's taboo in this day and age to say, I can't wait to see what a defense can do in a modern NFL game, but I'm interested to see which one prevails as we get closer to kickoff.
That's a very interesting point, but what interesting to me was the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs overcame adversity to get back into the Super Bowl again. Because look at Patrick Mahomes. He's never had to face a road playoff game in his career up until this season. And you just won 2 road games against the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens, 2 teams that were kind of expected to at least escape those particular rounds that the Kansas City Chiefs faced them in after defeating the Miami Dolphins, that is. And now you got you're one of 2 franchises that won a championship last year or in recent years, along with the Las Vegas Aces, to build another sports dynasty by winning 3 within a span of 4 years or 3 or 5 years or whatever.
Yeah, I know. That's look, it's so interesting that the Chiefs have become the very thing they swore to destroy. Everyone was so tired of New England, everyone was so tired of the Patriots, and they're like, oh boy, the Chiefs finally won. Downtrodden franchise finally gets one, and now everyone's sick of Kansas City at this point. Look, how much adversity can you truly face when you have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce in your arsenal? Isaiah Pacheco as well. Pacheco's one who's real interesting to me because everyone has said that no one's rooting for Kansas City right now. I tell you what, Scarlet Knight Nation is perhaps the one force in this universe that has anything that could possibly contend with the Swifties out there. And they have put their support behind Kansas City like no other. And for good reason, too. Pacheco has been a major X factor. The cliche is that he runs angry, but he's undersized and he does run angry and uses that to his advantage. So that's the yardage eating opportunities you need in this day and age to take time off the clock, to push things forward, and to keep a high-powered San Francisco offense off the field. So I'm interested to see. I think he's the X factor. I'm not saying anything original at that point, but I think he's going to be the reason that if Kansas City does prevail, it's going to be him. So, and of course, the MVP award will probably go to Mahomes if they win because, MVP award, both of the Super Bowl variety and the regular season variety, that's just code for most popular quarterback in this day and age, I feel. So I feel that, but I feel that if Kansas City does have anything for San Francisco defense, it's going to come down to Pacheco.
That's very interesting. But yeah, you got two different ways that the Super Bowl is going to approach. I mean, you're either going to see Brock Purdy finally add on to the legacy that the San Francisco 49ers have had since like the 80s and 90s and so on and so forth, or you're going to see Kansas City get the fourth ring, which would tie the New York Giants and which would tie the New York Giants and there was other team that has 4 championships, but I'm kind of blinking out. But yeah, you could afford a three-way tie. I mean, I know we Giants fans would love for that to be avoided, but you know what? What are you going to do? That's how it is.
I mean, look, I think if any fan base is suffering at this point, it's probably the Patriots at this point, the ones who are suffering because they got to watch two things. They got to watch they got to watch either the new AFC dynasty takeover or they have to watch, Tom Brady's childhood team, the 49ers, tie them in Super Bowl rings. So I feel that, if anyone has a raw deal in this whole thing, it's the Patriots. So just my opinion, but that's actually a good point too. I never thought about that. I never thought of it that way from a local perspective. Jets know better, for example, because how tough is it to watch backup quarterback Sam Darnold come out and say I wish it could have been the Jets. I was taken to the Super Bowl. I wish I could have gotten to a Super Bowl with the Jets. I'm paraphrasing right there, but how painful is that to see? And how painful is it to watch the Chiefs, a team whose number you had for a majority of that Sunday night game, prevail. So even with Zach Wilson, they get a raw deal in all this as well. But you know what? That's a Super Bowl for you. Two teams go home very, very happy. The other 31, well, let's just say as of Monday, everyone's undefeated. So
yeah, this is going to be very interesting. I got Kansas City winning, by the way.
I'm sticking to what I had at the beginning of the year. I'm going with San Francisco.
Yeah, hopefully that goes to fruition. And shout out to Patrick Mahomes' girlfriend Brittany Mahomes for being on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Nice.
Okay, that's a thing. Okay, wow.
Yeah, I just gotta point that out there.
For sure.
Yeah, one more topic that we forgot to talk about when we were talking about the USA Trade Camp was the fact that we both got to talk to Sabrina and the WNBA players about the Sabrina Ionescu versus Stephen Curry 3-point shootout that's going to take place at the All-Star break. I mean, the fact that we got an opportunity to discuss that, what are your overall thoughts as far as the response on they handling the adversity of a WNBA versus NBA challenge in the All-Star weekend coming up?
No, I think hey, look, it's good for her, and one thing that good for the game in general. I think it was Cheryl Reeve herself who compared it to the battle of the sexes between Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs back in the 70s. I think that was, my God. But I think this is a very interesting opportunity. It harkens back, in my opinion, to the days of the two-ball competition where you had NBA players and WNBA players compete alongside each other in terms of cities. I believe the New York contingent for a couple of years, it was Rebecca Lobo and Allen Houston. I think they did that twice. Whoever, oh God, but the other names escape my mind. Oh, Cappie Pondexter did it when they rebranded it under the Shooting Stars competition and added a current Nick in there as well. It was Allen Houston, Larry Fields, and Cappie Pondexter, and actually won that. So that's interesting. So that's what this whole thing reminds me of. But Cheryl Reeve mentioned that it's very Battle of the Sexes-esque, and she said that Sabrina has she's been carrying the mantle of women's sports for such a long time, and it started at Oregon, and so many others have risen in her wake in that span, especially in the especially in the game of basketball. We have Asia Wilson, we have so many others who have risen up. We have Angel Reese as well. So many, Caitlin Clark, so many others have risen up. And, it just goes to say a lot. It's so much has changed. 5 years ago, I would say Sabrina Ionescu was perhaps the one quote unquote household name in women's basketball. There were maybe a few others that, are skipping my mind right now. But if I went through the whole list, we'd probably be here all day. But now in this day and age, there's probably at least 10, maybe 15, maybe 20, household names that you can immediately ring off the top of your head in terms of, household names in this game, in the women's game. So, and that's just going to increase this even further. So interested to see what's going on. And I think the best part about it is, unlike the Battle of the Sexes, where there was some genuine animosity from Riggs kind of looking down on King a little bit, there is a sense of respect from Curry, and Sabrina mentioned that when we were talking to her on Friday and or Sunday. So I think that there's a level of respect between these two competitors, and it should be a really exciting competition. Eager to see how that goes down.
Yes, and I managed to speak to Ari about this as like literally last Saturday when she gave her statement. I mean, if you watch the interviews with me and Ari, you will probably get a better sense of how excited she was that you get to see Sabrina Ionescu facing Stephen Curry in this competition. And she ended up by saying, "I'm rooting for Sabrina. Go Sabrina Ionescu. Go women in sports. Go this, go that." I mean, she's really strong when it comes to women in sports. As much as she admires Stephen Curry, she's gonna go hard rooting for any woman to accomplish something.
I mean, well, we've gotten to know Sabrina over the past years too, and she's handled this entire situation with class. She's handled New York with so much respect and the right and the proper amount of respect and dignity it deserves. But no, it should be an interesting competition. Eager to see how it happens, and of course, Ari Chambers does great work. So can think of no one better to be at the forefront of this entire thing than her.
Yes, and I've had conversations with Gigi and Ari about this, but I've got to ask you. I mean, if this is a trend that continues in the future, I mean, which NBA and WNBA player would you like to see duke it out in a 3-point shootout in later years?
Oof! Wow. Okay.
Starting with
Wow,
the
that's a good
NBA.
question. Honestly, let's see how Steph or Sabrina goes before we start thinking about the future. But obviously, you'd like to see Kelsey Plum in there. Representing the champs after all. So you'd love to see something like that. I mean, look, if it were up to me, I would have brought back the 2-ball competition again. I thought that was a really fun thing for them to do. It was a good way to promote the W even in the offseason. So that's what I would have done. But Kelsey Plum would certainly be one. I'm biased. I grew up with a grandfather who absolutely idolized Larry Bird. He's got he's not really much of one celebrity into celebrity or athlete worship, but he idolized Larry Bird. So that would be something I would love to see. But hey, look, let's make it New York versus New York. How about Jalen Brunson versus Sabrina Ionescu out there? That'd be a lot of fun. But I did ask,
that'd be nice. But
ask Sabrina.
matter of fact, let's just make it more interesting. Sabrina Ionescu versus Mikal Bridges. That would make for a much better matchup. And I know I said when I interviewed Gigi about this, that I wanted Aaliyah Boston versus Giannis Antetokounmpo, the battle of power forwards. And I know I said that for those who have seen my interviews with Gigi, but that would be another interesting matchup that you will see. I mean, how about Mikal Bridges versus Sabrina Ionescu? It makes sense because they're both partnered with each other at the Barclays Center.
Oh yeah, for sure. Brooklyn Civil War right there. That'd be a lot of fun. But hey, have the Liberty take revenge against the Madison Square Garden Company. I don't know, but no. But hey, look, everything's going real well for everyone involved, and it's great to see this influx in New York basketball. MSG is doing well. You're seeing good things happening in the Barclays Center. So it's an exciting time to be a New York basketball fan, no doubt.
Yes, it is. And now over this episode of Nothing But That Sports Talk. Thank you so much by Geoff Magliocchetti. And love the work that you do. It is nice that we managed to bump heads to the USA training camp. And I can't wait to see what you do for the WBA this season coming up.
Rafiq, appreciate that. Appreciate your time and insight. Keep up the great work, man. You do incredible work. You've had some incredible guests on, and you've conducted some real good material. So keep up the good work, and thank you for having me on.
For Geoff Magliocchetti, Rafiq Louison, we'll see you next time.